Hi everyone, this is Sunette here with Soul, and in this video we once again have Joe accompanying us. Hi Joe.
Hi everybody.
And for this video we're going to be, in and from this video, we're going to be walking a word that Joe had personally faced and experienced due to changes, let's call it the unpredictable and the unexpected in life that happens. And this word is none other than adaptable. So Joe is for a moment going to take the floor, sharing with us, and maybe let me start with a question, which is, Joe, how and what happened and changed in your life that led you to essentially, let's call it question and introspect yourself within the word adaptable?
So let me tell the story from the beginning of it, as far back as I can remember it. This was during a period in my life where things had kind of fallen apart. I had to move and everything was new and I didn't have a lot of money, and it's basically a whole starting over period. And during this time, I was faced with having to take on a lot of new challenges, having to meet people and get used to a whole new industry, a whole new job. And in that process, I realized that I was making it a lot harder on myself because I was reacting to everything and still wanting to do things the old way and wanting things to be the way it used to be, and not letting myself do what? Adapt.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanted to add in there because it is interesting how, even in my life as well, I've also made a change in environment, in school, in friends, in home, everything. And it's like in that process and experience, so much of yourself and your mind is still, let's call it almost habitually conditioned in relation to everything in how it was in the past, in the old. And man, I also had that conflict, because inside myself just was not wanting to connect with what was on the outside. So
yes,
adapting would have been much of a support because it took me about almost 2-3 years before I actually settled in. And this was during my my early mid-teens. So but continue sharing.
Yeah, so this was my first experience of having to really adapt. And when I looked at the word adapt, what came up was, you're letting go and cutting off your past, and you have to take on all these new things, and that's what adapting means. You just got to let everything go. But I found that that's not really true. It's not really about cutting off your experiences of the past. They're always going to be with you. You can't just delete them and they're gone forever.
No.
Don't we wish?
Sometimes.
But it's to take what you've learned, all of that rich experience, good and bad, all of that is able to support you when you look at it as, not defining you, but rather it's a support base of where I've been, what I have done, and it tells me what I haven't yet done. And all of that kind of translates into being able to adapt, meaning you take what works from the past and bring it here, adapt it over.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because what opened up there as well was, for me, when I looked at the word adapt, it was interesting, and here looking at the defining process of the word, what came up for me was that idea of I have to lose myself in a new environment or with people and situations and experiences, and in a way adapt to them, to that environment, completely. So there was this idea or illusion of losing a sense of self. But what you're explaining was what you're actually doing is you always maintain that sense of self.
Yes.
But you're in adapting, you are almost in a transition process or phase or period where, yes, you're not going to be completely the same as who you were, where you were previously, or with who you were, what you were doing. But not the same doesn't mean losing everything. Actually, the opposite. You're gaining.
Yes.
Because you're transferring, as you said, a part of yourself, and everything that you've learned and experienced, all the expertise, skills, talents, the comfortability, the relationships, all of that will be with you as well. But at the same time, adapting, that transitioning process and experience can assist and support you to grow more, to learn more, to explore more about yourself. So in this defining process of adapting and redefining it for yourself, can you give us an example of that process?
Of redefining the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took a look at the word, and one of the first things I did was to just kind of break it down and look at the various dimensions of it. And one thing that was interesting is when I look at adapter, we have those travel adapters for plugs. When you travel to another country, the purpose of it is so that, wherever you are, you can still do what you need to do. That's its purpose. It's to allow that. So I brought that dimension in and looked at myself as being my own adapter, meaning take all of what I learned and, grew with and made part of my personality, my skills, all of that. Take all of that, find ways to plug it into where I am now.
Nice.
So that was
cool.
my kind of redefinition of adapter. I am my adapter. I will put myself into where I need to be.
Nice, yes, and also maybe playing with it a bit more, it would be like, yes, realizing where you're going to be plugging into or how exactly might be different. But the actual process of, in a way, plugging in is also, indicating you're the directive principle. Directive principle meaning I'm deciding to plug in here. This is me. So I've got to, we also sometimes initially struggle to plug in. And so in that plugging in process, it might sometimes be tricky, other times smooth, but you remain aware of the fact that, everything's new, everything's changed. I am being thrown into the deep end, but it allows for much more of a stability as well within yourself. Because in looking at, I had 3 distinct phases in my life of moving, changing environment and relationships, and looking back, it took me an exceptionally long time to adjust to, in the adjusting process, adapt and be a part of, and how that would have been much easier and much more of a smooth transition if I had more of a stability, a groundedness of, yes, this is me, everything's new, but let me see how I'm going to get to know myself within this environment, these people, and this change. So then into the actual living process of this word, we all know that life, not always so easy and so smooth.
No.
And how do they say it? Smooth sailing. We always have our bumps, ups, downs, falls, failures, mistakes. So tell us, was it initially so easy to adapt?
Not at all. Of course, this whole concept of adapting came out of a need, right?
Fascinating.
It came out of the recognition that, okay, I need to change because my job, the people around me, the economy, the world is not going to change itself to fit me.
Nice. Yeah.
So all the frustration, all of the anger, all of the, making things harder for myself, I had to change. So within that, there was this difficult period of I'm still facing all of that. It's still going on where I'm not liking where I am and having trouble. But within that, I had to first begin with that initial decision of I'm going to adapt.
Nice.
And from there was that transition period where, things are very in your face. Yeah. But eventually, as I lived that word, things started to balance out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over time.
Over time. It was a process.
Yes, but that is an important point as well that Joe is mentioning is the moment of the decision you have to make. And I've realized it as well in many moments in my life where it's almost like there's a part of you that goes, I want to change, but you kind of subconsciously, unconsciously accept and allow things to still continue as is, and you don't actually really take that inner and physical step in your presence and your actions and your words to make that change real. And I've also found it comes down to that decision. And fortunately, I could see quite a comparison in my life, and I'm sure you can also relate, where if I say I want to change, but I don't, then things either start happening in my life that almost forces that point
Yes.
to happen. And in a way, looking back, I would feel like, oh, why did things have to go so wrong and so bad and this way and that way? But then I realized, well, girl, you didn't change. So even though part of you knew, you actually had to. Other times it was the opposite, where I wanted to change, but nothing happened really to push that change for me. And then it was just eventually sitting with my own thoughts, almost becoming irritating. I want to change, I want to change, I want to change. You just actually start changing to kind of just get rid of all that chaotic, almost recycling and recycling of thoughts. But I think this is something everyone can take with you in redefining and living words. It's not going to happen for you. You have to make the decision to actually redefine and actually live the word, make it real. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So as with you as well, do you have maybe a significant memory or moment to share of that difference in terms of when, that need came within you to make that decision, and when you actually made that decision?
It's hard to pin down an exact moment, because when I look back now, it's really funny. It's kind of like I gradually changed, and it's hard to pin down one moment, but I would say it's like a span or a series of moments.
Yes.
But one particular turn this was back at one of my older jobs, actually. The first time I had to live the word adaptation. This was when things were at their worst, when I was at my low point. Hating going to work every morning, dreading getting out of bed, going to the commute, dealing with the people, walking into my office, seeing the stack of work waiting for me. Hated it every day for months on end. That was my experience. But then when I made that decision of, okay, I'm the one that needs to change because no one else is going to change this for me. I started to wake up, breathe, don't let myself already drag myself down, because I'm going to need this energy to live this word.
Yes.
Walk into the office. I know there's going to be work, so get on top of it and start prioritizing my time and be the kind of worker that they want me to be. And in a way, that was also an adaptation, because it was like, no, I don't want to be a good worker for them. Look at what they're doing to me.
Oh, fascinating.
So with these changes, I started to just change my own behavior. Instead of dreading the work, I would just actively take the work on. When people come to me with problems, I set things aside, listen to them, and get to know what the issues are, and get to know them. Whereas before, I would be just frustrated, and it's like, okay, I don't have time for you, put it over there in my stack, I'll get to it, I'll call you, don't come to me, I'm busy. So things like that changed, and through that process, it was just... So that's why I say it wasn't like one moment where everything turned. It was a series of small turns that eventually took me on a whole other path.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Because what also opened up here that is quite interesting, that would have, let's say, prevented that process of adapting, is that your own emotional experience toward yourself, the day, the work itself, the people, everything like that kind of created this barrier within yourself. And it's just like keeping your head down, walking in, getting things done, walking out, and that's my life. But with just letting go of that experiences, and this could be something that everyone who's listening and watching could have a look out for, in this process of adapting. Another important step would be to have a look at what is my experience within me toward myself, the work I do, the people, and things like that. Am I kind of stuck in this storm of emotions that I'm not even seeing other people, seeing meaning communicating with them, like you said, what happened, getting to the actual work, which in itself is really just a doing. I mean, that also took me a very long time to realize.
Yeah.
It's like work should just be breathing, doing,
Yes.
getting it done. But, we have this amazing mind that can
Yeah.
overcomplicate everything.
And make everything personal. Everything.
Yes, for sure. And, in that process, you kind of miss a lot. So maybe also just for the viewers, what in your experience of yourself changed? Just, the waking up, the getting to work, getting things done, the people. What inner change also happened in
The
that
most
process?
fascinating thing that happened was I began to get really good at my job. Because I stopped judging it. I was showing up, doing the research, getting the work done, finding ways to improve the efficiency for myself. Because I didn't want to spend my time doing that work. So I would just work on, okay, how do I make this easier for me? And be proactive about that instead of waiting for other people or judging. And through that process, like I said, I would be more open to feedback from people when people have problems instead of judging it and looking at, oh, look at all the work you're making me do.
Okay.
Look at, well, why is this happening? How can we shortcut that and get around this? Or how can we find ways to make it easier for me to process these requests? Because this is my job, to be here and do this.
Yeah.
So as I did more and more of that, I started getting noticed by the company, moved up the ranks, and I wasn't dreading my work anymore because I eventually had my own office, my own team, I was training people.
Wow.
And just the balance of the two is like, who was that first walked into the door those years ago? And now I'm, totally
Awesome.
different.
Wow, Jerry, that is amazing. Because it's also, as you said, that one significant point of change for you was, not blaming, let's say, the company or your boss for your position and experience, but, making what you do and who you are an extension of yourself.
Yes.
So it's like realizing, but this is a part of me now, it's part of my life. How is what I do going to reflect me? And I'm sure in the process that you walked, you could see your potential coming through.
Yeah.
And look at how far you went. That is really, really extraordinary. Joe, thank you very much for sharing your experiences with the word adaptable. And we are certain that from his personal experience and story, there's little something for everyone, or everything for everyone. Joe, any other final points you'd like to share?
Well, I would say that it is very easy to think about the words and kind of internally think about changing. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I can totally do that. But when things are real, when things are in your face and you have to physically change your behavior, that is a whole other story.
Okay, well, we shall get to that in our next videos.
Yes.
Where Joe will assist and support in, giving some real examples of moments that he faced and how challenging it really is initially to make that decision within yourself in that real-time moment when you already feel and see and sense an old pattern within yourself is trying to creep up. How to, in that moment, stick to your decision, your word, who it is that you'd like to be in that moment. That's best for you. That's best for others. It's best for the extensions and reflections of what you do in your everyday life. All right, everyone. From me, Sunette, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.